This sense of entitlement is something that is going to another level in our society.
So just Mr. Fred should go for a mental checkup because it's not all right. It's not fine. Mr. Fred himself is a very responsible man. You're under someone's roof, so you don't have every right to live this lifestyle. Fred has been fired because he has been told several times not to, and Fred is sending threats to the man.
You find it more amongst the people, some of the people that are not educated.
Really, for real. A beggar has no choice. These beggars now have choice. So what is bringing her up to make them act that way? A man that's not responsible lacks character. You know that.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to today's podcast. My name is Faye Vibes, your favorite baby girl. And today we're going to be looking at a very amazing topic because it touches everyone. And I'm sure you might have experienced, or someone close to you might have experienced something like that. It's an emotional thing. Well, before we go into that, I would like to introduce very handsome men here with me on set. I have Spez, Mr. Martins, and I have Ariel.
Thank you.
All right. I would give a little bit of a story to this topic. Okay, there is this man. I would call him Mr. Tony. So Mr. Tony is a man, a wealthy man to an extent. He lives comfortably, and he was in need of a driver, and he has a friend. We'll call him friend. So this friend had a job, and someone came to do this job for him, and we're going to call this person that did the job Fred. So Fred came and did a job for friend. And after this job, he was like, oh, it seems as though Fred is a nice person. My friend, Mr. Tony, is in need of a driver, and a driver that will be living with him as well to make it easier and more efficient. So, friend introduces Fred to Mr. Tony, and of course, he hired him. And this Fred is married with children. So Mr. Tony said, I'm going to give you a room in my boys' quarter just to make it easier for us. So when I am in need of your service, you would be available at any time. Of course, apart from the days that you're going to be off, so you could go see your family. But you can actually bring your family if you want. But Fred said, no, I'm just going to stay here alone. I already have my family comfortable where they are. I would go see them on my days off. Now, it happens that Mr. Tony is a private person and explained it to Fred and said, please stay here alone. You can always bring your family, but I don't want people in and out of my home, which was agreed by the both of them. So subsequently, Fred was put on a salary of about 80,000 naira. Now, it's a good salary for such a job, and there is an accommodation for free. And of course, Tony's wife would give Fred meals maybe once a day, but she is not mandated to. But most of the times she gets food to Fred. Now, Fred is his driver, and for 2 months things were going well. Suddenly, Fred started bringing in different women. Not once, not twice, not thrice. It kept happening, and Mr. Tony kept saying, Fred, stop this. I don't like it. Remember what we agreed on. I want my privacy. My family lives here. I want my security. I don't need different women coming in and out of my house. If it's your family, good, bring them here, but don't bring in different women. But Fred didn't keep to this. Fred continued. And prior to this, Mr. Tony had increased his salary from 80,000 to 100 because he was satisfied with his driving job. He was good with driving. He was good with it. So Mr. Tony was impressed and increased his salary from 80,000 as agreed to 100,000. But now Fred is not keeping to the terms of the agreement. However, as at the 3rd month, Mr. Tony was tired and told Mr. Fred, it's good, you're fired, I don't need your services anymore. Now, Fred went back to friend and asked friend to please look for another job for him. Friend is asking why. He said, my last employer just doesn't want me anymore. So friend called Mr. Tony and said, Mr. Tony, why would you do this? You know, this man has a family. You can't just sack him like that. And then Mr. Tony, of course, went ahead to explain what had transpired between the both of them. Now, the question is this. Mr. Tony said, I don't want you anymore. Now, Mr. Fred is feeling like Mr. Tony overreacted and took away his job. And, he's been lamenting everywhere. In fact, sending messages to Mr. Tony and saying, you're a wicked person. You shouldn't have done this. It was my life. You had no business with my life and all that. Now, Mr. Tony is asking Mr. Fred, please warn Mr. Fred to stop contacting me and stop sending me those messages, or else I'm going to arrest him. However, Mr. Fred is feeling like this is wrong and feeling entitled to something that we don't actually know. Now, my question is this. Is this some sort of work, is an emotional blackmail or a sense of entitlement to this work environment or something? So what do you think, Mr. Ariel?
Firstly, I would, looking at the whole scenario and looking at Mr. Fred and assessing him as an individual, I would first suggest that Mr. Fred should go for a mental checkup because it's not all right. It's not fine. Yeah, I understand that people can act out of frustration.
Yeah.
But the terms were clear to what you should and what you shouldn't do. And looking at that is very simple. You agreed on these terms, and it's expected of you to keep up with your own side of the terms. But then you're violating it over and over, and he has given you a long rope. Now, a man like that who needs a driver, this man is not just a common citizen. He has a life, and probably he told you, I like my life in private and like that environment to stay confidential and not be violated by different people walking in areas where you don't know what's going to happen. That's simple. But I think that Mr. Fred himself is a very responsible man. Because when you said that Mr. Tony, the owner of the house and who gave him the job, told him you can bring in your family. That a responsible man will gladly accept that because it will save him cost of rent.
Yeah.
From the family's other side to save more money, But he doesn't want to, to look into that and, work that out. He wants to be free to do what he wants to do. He's irresponsible. So I feel that Mr. Fred deserves everything that he got from this whole thing because sometimes we as a people, the lifestyle we want to live, probably we're not able to end those lifestyles that we want to live. And we find ourselves in an environment that we can somehow, live that kind of lifestyle we wanted to live. We tend to be outright with that, forgetting that you did not earn this lifestyle.
Okay.
You're under someone's roof. So you don't have every right to live this lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to tell an adult how to live his life.
Yeah.
But when it's violating a term, bro, you need to get yourself back to order, right? Or else go earn that life you want to live by yourself. Rule your world. But when someone is there and the person owns you to an extent because he's paying you, so he owns a certain kind of some sense of right to tell you what to do or what not to do. You should abide by that. If you're not okay and you can't take that, you should have quit. But Fred has been fired because he has been told several times not to. And Fred is sending threats to the man. If the man decides to clap back at Fred, we'll be pitying Fred's situation right now.
Yeah.
But look at Fred having the audacity to send threat message to a man that can decide to do anything with you and nothing will happen.
But you know that coming from Fred's perspective, he's seeing that the man is violating his privacy. his sense of his human rights.
You know,
This is a funny guy. I like
it-
that.
it's about this thing actually happens. It's about the society.
Mm.
This sense of entitlement is something that is going to another level in our society, and you'll find it more amongst the people, some of the people that are not educated.
Mm.
One is that there are people who don't, at that class of life, who don't understand what it means to have an agreement.
Mm.
They don't know what terms of agreement means. They just think the way they think it in their head, that is the way it is. You are wrong. You are wrong. You are not supposed to control my life, in quotes. I am an adult. I should be allowed to live
Do whatever
the kind of life I want to live.
Yeah.
And so he is forgetting that there is something called terms of agreement, which he signed. That could have motivated that action. The way he's reacting to, his sack later. Another aspect to it is Mr. Tony. What was the kind of relationship he had with him? Because some people can abuse freedom.
Yes.
Do you understand? Sometimes, this boss staff relationship, sometimes when the boss wants to be free with you
To be a bit
and
more
wants you to also,
lenient,
be
to
very free
in his
around
space.
him, and it takes someone that is matured in the mind to understand that this is a privilege.
Yeah, and still be able to
And
create
still
a boundary.
be able to, yes, create the boundary. And so perhaps this Mr. Tony has actually been very free with this man, took the man in, treated him as a friend rather than a staff.
And within a short amount of
Within
time,
that short
increased
space
his
of time
salary
to 100,000.
Yes.
From 80,000 to 100,000.
Yes.
That tells you that he wants this guy to be free and comfortable. And so the guy is now having this sense of entitlement. He feels is his rights. Do you understand? I can now do anything I want because, of course, is he not Mr. Tony? Is not him?
Yeah.
Because he brought himself to the level.
Which is still that sense of entitlement.
Do you know, I'm actually thinking of something now while you were talking. I was actually going deeper into this case, You just brought it to our notice to the table about this poverty line and how they think. And it's actually the truth because I've even seen beggars on the pedestrian bridge. You walk by a beggar, they're like their situation is too bad, and they're like pleading on you to help. And you probably put your hands in your pocket and give them like maybe 15 naira notes, Nigerian naira notes, and this beggar will be like, "What are you giving me? Why are you giving me 15 naira?" So it is that bad. You now begin to look into the situation.
I'm bigger than 15. Why would you give me?
Tossing the money back at you? And that would be like really for real. A beggar has no choice. These beggars now have choice. So what is bringing that up to make them act that way? Now, again, we were talking about Fred and Tony and their relationship. If I have a driver and he's driving me, my life is in his hands.
Exactly.
Yes, the first thing I will do to make him comfortable, the first thing I do to make him a friend, and even the way I'll treat him, he will feel like a member of the family. Now, that is one, but that's not enough to make Fred feel entitled. If we look at Fred from an environment of a poor man, let's not call Fred a poor man, but we know he's poor. He needs a job to pay to take care of his family. Get from that, and poor people and how they think. They feel like the world owes them something. And sometimes for them to act and threaten a big man, they have a hand on something that is very petty. Maybe when Mr. Tony was free with him, let's assume, let's just say, let's use as a...
I think is what is in my mind.
Let's assume.
I wanted to, point that out. But
let's assume that when Mr. Tony gave him the free hand, maybe he noticed that Mr. Tony could probably be seeing some girl outside.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. But Mr. Tony is responsible enough not to bring them into his house.
Mm-hmm.
But feel like because your home is your freedom aspect. Maybe Mr. Tony could take the girl to a hotel, take it
And maybe you would have driven him there.
Yeah. Maybe your hotel is that.
There is something about drivers.
Mm.
A driver actually knows more
Yes.
about his boss than even family members.
Yeah.
Because he spends virtually all his time
with him,
with the driver.
With the driver.
The driver takes him to places where you may not know that this man responsible in quotes goes to. He may have also taken him to places, meetings that are not legal. And so some of these things he's aware of them. And so that could have been the reason he's feeling like this man can't treat me like this. After all, if he treats me like this, I have something
on him
that I can use to control him. And so this would have informed some of these actions. But I'm not saying actually that this is the truth, but these are possibilities that could have motivated such action.
Does it mean that there is an emotional blackmail going on with the sense of entitlement that Fred must be feeling?
Of course, there must be something that prompts that sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
Something must have transpired that is making you feel like you have to give this to me. Okay. You owe me this. If nothing had transpired, your sense of entitlement will be based on nothing.
Yes.
But you are feeling entitled because you believe something in your heart that because of this man should act like this.
Yeah. But coming with your logic that it should be based on something. Your sense of entitlement should be based on something. With what he said, which I have also I've experienced firsthand, giving aims to someone who is on the street, literally sitting there and begging for alms. And I gave something and the person is upset and was like, why would you give me this? He didn't do anything for me. So if it should be based on something, what is it based on?
But come to think of it, if you have a beggar by your house who knows your worth to an extent, and then you drove by a Mercedes Benz, and then you came out of the Mercedes Benz, and all you could give the beggar is 5 naira, that you know that 5 naira cannot afford anything. I think something will be stirred up in that beggar's mind, irrespective of the fact that, the beggar should not have sense of entitlement. But the beggar will be like, wow, how can this man? Human psychology. There must be a reaction. But what I'm against is throwing the money back or showing that, showing it beyond all reasonable doubt that he's not comfortable with what you gave him.
Shall I chip something in while you're talking? I had to do a further analysis on the human mind and why people are entitled to things. And I have to permit me to stretch further. Most of the reasons why people feel entitled to something, whether or not they have something to hold on to be entitled to the thing, is about them. Their self, yes, their self-pride, what they feel they should, just like someone saying, like a beautiful girl, a girl, maybe beautiful or not, then you tell her you're beautiful, you deserve the best thing in the world, and all those things. You keep telling her these things over and over and over and over. She walks down the street, she feels entitled to a lot of things, whether she earns it or not, because someone told her she has believed it. Now, that is one. Another is people on their own side. Like I was telling someone, you need 2 things to be successful in life: character and information. All right? Now, most of the times, the beggars we have on the streets, what brought them down to the streets is because of their bad character. So because they have bad character, life deprives them of the kind of information they need to establish and stand on their 2 feet in life. So,
okay. What about those that are sickly? What about those that have issues with their health and have no other option but to beg? And maybe have no other person.
People.
Yes.
In the case of handicapped people, right? I've seen a lot of handicapped people that are angry at life for their situation. right?
But that is a different case entirely.
But she brought it up because I was telling you about the people who are whole. Because Mr. Fred is whole, he's complete, he's not a handicapped man. Now he's entitled to whatever life he wants to live under the roof of Mr. Tony, who told him otherwise not to. So he feels that he can do this thing because, a man that's not responsible lacks character. We know that. So because he doesn't have character, that's why he's irresponsible.
That's true.
Now let's take it down to the streets. Like I told you before, most of the people who end up begging in the streets, most of the times they are complete, they have their arms, their legs, they are good health, and they are begging in the streets, tossing the money back at you. It's a lack of character. Because there's a beggar that will show you character, you will want to push further to ask them, why are you begging? What circumstances brought you to this condition? Then they tell you their stories. You can give information that could bring them out of there. But their action is not making you, inspiring you to give them information that will help them because they lack character. Now, that's a case of someone who's handicapped. Most of the times I talk with them, you see that their reasoning is, why would life bring me to this situation? Okay, life has brought me to this situation, then what happens? All the humanity that is well and fine owes me, right? They have to fund my life. So when he's sitting down there and he's asking his arms, he's telling us, for the fact I'm sitting here stretching my arms to making money. That's my job. Your job is to give me enough money to take care of myself. So why not trust this thing to me that is not gonna do anything? Because you guys have a better life. You guys are doing better. You guys are working there. I can't move myself around here. Even if I can, I would have owned a company. I would have bought a car. I would have built a house.
Well, actually, I believe that aspect is depression because of their condition. It can come in. Of course, those of us who have who are whole, complete, health-wise, at some point in our lives, we feel depressed and we begin to ask certain questions, and sometimes it make us act in a certain way.
Yeah.
And it's okay for people who are in that condition to, from time to time, feel depressed, and that's why we need the social workers. I've always said that, who from time to time will handle, talk to those people, visit them, get to find out how they are doing and stuff like that. So that could be an aspect. But when it extends to them not being appreciative of the fact that the person who is giving that arm may be going through one thing or the other too. It's just that he is just touched, moved by emotions and compassion to do something for him.
Bringing us back to character. Character builds empathy.
Of course.
It makes you think.
Of course.
Just like
Of
what you
course.
said about character and information, there are actually people on the streets who actually prefer to be beggars.
Of course.
No matter what you do for them, no matter
Yes.
what you try
They
to
are
do,
picking it up as a profession.
exactly, they are comfortable. In fact, there was a woman on social media who someone saw, she had a baby on her back and she was, begging, and someone saw her and was like, oh, okay, she even has a child. Okay, I might not do much for everybody, but at least let me help this woman. So the person came on social media and asked for his followers or something, to help him to fund this project. Help me get an apartment for this woman. Help me put her somewhere safe. And then we'll look out for something she can start doing, like business-wise. Now, he was able to gather some funds, rented an apartment, a one-bedroom apartment, very clean. Furnished it with a bed, with a television, gas cooker, furnished it properly and asked this woman and her children to move in. Of course, he brought it to social media to say, you people gave me money for this and I've done it. This is it. She's in her house. Only for the woman to go in there, stayed for a month or so, sold everything in the house and left the
Back to the
apartment
street.
and went back begging on the streets. And the man, he didn't even know until the landlord called and was like, you rented this apartment and for like 2 months or so, nobody has been opening it, nobody has been sweeping the environment, it's unoccupied. And he said no. So they searched for the woman, they were not able to see her until coincidentally He saw her again somewhere else, begging.
Two things are involved.
So
in
is
that
this just,
matter.
is this character
Yes,
and
it's
information?
character.
Of course, character is involved. The person who extended help did very wonderful job. But of course, you know that apartments, shelter is one thing. Surviving under the shelter is another.
He
Hold
gave
on,
her
hold
some
on.
money
Hold on.
to start eating, and he was going to come back the next week to give her, to set up something.
Mm-hmm.
But they were talking on phone. He bought her a Nokia, a phone with some buttons, and they were talking. So in his head, the woman is still there. So from time to time, he will call her. They were okay. So his job was trying to put money together again for a shop.
Mr. Spears, you see this thing called entitlement mindset. It's more of a psychological thing than a physical thing
Of
or a
course,
circumstantial
it is.
thing. Now, you see this lady, this is one of cases like this. I know of a girl that met a wealthy man. This entitlement mindset, as to what brings people to an environment of entitlement, most of the time, zero lack of character. Because I did a further study on that, and I found that this is the problem here. We discovered the problem here. She told this man that she wants to start something to do. She doesn't want to go begging, doesn't want to be a hookup girl, and all those things. She wants to be responsible and useful to a rich man. The man said, okay, fine, I'll help you. What do you want to do? He said, I want to start POS business. He said, okay, how much do you need? He said, 1 million. The man, to be sure that there is no stories, to why this thing didn't stand, he gave her 2 million. This guy came back to ask for money again. That was second case. He gave her money. All the stories, I don't know where they bring up the stories from. It will be so touching. The guy gave her money again. The third time he came again. So I was telling my friend that this guy has come to me asking me for help the third time. And I've been helping her. Now, I told the guy that this girl does not have the character. You know what character is? I don't want to tell you what character is. Character is not just, like they say, to be homely or know how to talk or write or express yourself. That's not what character is. Character is something, the qualities that you have that you cannot be paid for. If I can pay for what you do for me, that's not an exhibition of character. Character is something that's internal. It's a value that you have inside of you that you use when you extract a character, when you put it to work, then you are able to create values externally for yourself. In other words, you have discipline, you have consistency, you have patience to do things. So look at the people who, this lady that they gave a house, furnished it, is not patient enough to build anything. There is no willpower inside there. Character to stay and wait and build something and nurture it and it will grow.
There could also be a challenge of capacity. Because there was a story that I saw a few days back. Before this thing came up, there was this young man that was selling water on the street. He was hawking water, and the way he advertised the water, H2O, they named him Dr. H2O. The way he advertised it got the company he was selling their water to come in contact with him. Opened up a business for him with their brand, got it ready, a business worth 10 million, and told him, start. This business ran down. And he came out saying it's a spiritual problem. And he is not able to, he can't even afford to eat currently because of this issue. Now, he's saying it's spiritual. And there is this sense of entitlement he has that they couldn't have, they did this, they did that. And I'm looking at it like what you just said. I think it has to do with a sense of a lack of capacity to handle such an amount. Just like the man you said gave her 2 million and gave her again and again. She doesn't have such capacity.
I don't see it as capacity. The problem there in this particular case could be coming from the kind of life the lady wants to live. Someone who told you that she required 1 million to start POS business is not actually telling you the truth. What she is telling you is something you need to hear. She wanted to tell you that she wanted to start a business so that she will get your attention to release money to her. and then 2 million was given, and she could come back again, it just boils down to character that you were talking about, and not just about capacity. Because when you talk about capacity, it's a different thing entirely. If the person honestly wants to do business, first and foremost, you have to look for a way to build capacity around whichever business you want to start.
Yes, that's where your strength is.
That is where your strength is. And so it is not about capacity, it's about MAGA.
They pay.
They pay.
It's the same thing. Let me tell you. It's just different shades of the same thing. Like the one scamming the man, the one sits on the road and is begging you and is getting angry at the money you paid. Some beggars sit there and beg you and see those working there as magas. Now, do you know that?
So somehow Fred is seen to Mr. Tony as a maga as well.
Yes, of course, because
oh wow,
he's holding on to something to act. You know, he's feeling like, oh, this man, mumu. See, as they give me an enabling environment. See, as he's paying me money. He's even giving me an apartment, and I can't live my life.
So he wants
to put up with whatever life.
Before we even conclude, because I know where we are headed to now, I want to tell you something about sense of entitlement. Mm-hmm. There is nobody that doesn't have it. If a pastor comes to you, a senior pastor who understands spirituality of life,
yes,
and morality, comes to you, and you know that you have the capacity to welcome him very well, serve him something, and then you go to give him something that is very inferior, he will feel you have insulted him. That in itself is entitlement.
You know, that is, he has the right. He has the right to that. He has the right to that. You know why? The person that you said he feels entitled to underperformed. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about performance here. We're talking about being entitled to something that you've not earned.
Okay.
So how did the pastor earn you giving him anything?
He must have done something to be able to come to your house and feel entitled to a level of performance.
I just use pastor. It's not like...
That's what I'm saying. It's still in the example. So I think we are just agreeing to the fact that Mr. Fred is just entitled.
Yes.
And sees Mr. Tony as a maga and wants to chop a national cake from his pockets. Wow. All right. So I would like to know your thoughts on this topic. I know that one of you or all of you or someone close to you must have had such an experience of an entitlement feeling from someone close to you or someone you've met, and would like to hear that story. Thank you so much once again for participating with us on this topic. Thank you for always clicking, and thank you for commenting. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for subscribing to this channel. Honnette Insight Podcast. Thank you so much. I'm always your favorite baby girl, Faye Vibes. See you and love you.